imagine this scenario. There you are, innocently walking along with your loaded gun. Now, of course you've got your finger on the trigger, because what's the point of having a gun if you don't have your finger on the trigger? But it's only squeezed in about halfway, maybe 2/3. I mean, you're not intending to shoot the thing, you're just walking along with your loaded gun. Suddenly, someone appears from around the corner and your gun goes off. That's right, you've been triggered. Or maybe somebody comes along and jostles you and your gun goes off. Maybe it was an accident, maybe they even jostled you deliberately and your gun went off, you've been triggered again. What should you do if this happens to you? And don't tell me that this will never happen to you. I mean, you think it's the kind of thing that's only going to happen to other people, but it turns out you're just as susceptible as anybody else to being triggered. So here's what to do. First thing, place blame. I mean, your gun wouldn't have gone off if that other person wasn't there, so clearly it's their fault that the gun went off. If you place blame, then you can do some other wonderful things, like maybe get them to clean up the mess that was made by your gun going off. Get them to apologize to you and help you make you feel better. And maybe in the process of making them responsible, you can also trigger them. That's right, triggering is contagious. That is why there is an epidemic of triggering happening. So I should pause here for a moment and say that I apologize if I'm triggering any of you by joking about the sensitive and painful topic of triggering. But this loaded gun metaphor is just too good not to use. I mean, I hear people irresponsibly use this term all the time. They say, well, he triggered me, or it was not my fault. I mean, everything was fine, but then she came along and triggered me. As if the other person really did the thing. But all the conditions exist within you already. Like a loaded gun, you are waiting to go off because there are unresolved things in you that the slightest disturbance in the field can trigger. It's important to understand what triggering really is and why it happens and what to do about it, so that we can use this term more responsibly. So let me give you a couple examples. Let's say that your boyfriend comes home half an hour late, later than he said he was going to, and you feel that he disappeared, and you're mad at him for disappearing on you. It turns out that the reason you're mad is because long ago in your childhood, there was a period where your father used to go off on drinking binges and would disappear, and no one would know where he was, and everyone would worry about him and get scared. And that experience is being evoked by what's happening in the present. That means that you're being triggered. You're not really responding to him disappearing, he's just half an hour late, whether or not that's a problem in and of itself. Let's say that you encounter somebody who gives you a mean look one morning, and you get scared, and you feel like you need to do something to try to make them feel better so they don't get mad at you. Because in the past, people got mad at you in a way that is unresolved in you. Maybe this person who's giving you a mean look really just ate something nasty for breakfast and they're feeling ornery, and it has nothing to do with you, but you're triggered. And triggering doesn't just happen in these kind of discrete moments. There are ways in which we're triggered kind of all the time. I mean, if you think about the difference between how we respond to a new adult who we encounter and how you respond to, say, a new baby that you encounter, with a baby you'll tend to be just open-hearted and undefended. Your face will be open and your eyes will be wide, and you'll just love them uninhibitedly, appreciate their beauty, and be really expressive. But with an adult, you probably won't be that way, because most of us haven't been hurt by babies, and most of us have been hurt by older people. And so you get around an older person, you might be filled with anxiety or insecurity, or have a sense of performance demand because you think there are certain ways you have to act in order to be acceptable to the person. And so that's an example of how you can be triggered in a kind of chronic way because you're around other people all the time. What's happening is that something happened many moons ago, or many things happened, that were hurtful to you, that are unhealed and unresolved within you. And something in the present sufficiently reminds you of these old past experiences that are unresolved, such that in the moment you lose the ability to distinguish the past from the present. One of the distinguishing factors of triggering is that you start to behave in kind of rigid ways. You go on automatic pilot. There's a repeating pattern of reactions in you. It's kind of the same all the time. You lose your intelligence because you're no longer responding to what's happening now. You can't tell the difference between what's happening now and all the stuff that's gotten stirred up in you, all the old feelings from the old experiences. And so you lose the ability to think intelligently. So what do you really do in these circumstances? placing blame is obviously not helpful. The first thing to do is to try to sort out the past from the present, to recognize what it is that's unresolved in you that's being evoked, so you don't confuse it with what's happening now. Because in almost every case, nothing bad is happening now. It feels like there is, but it's safe and benign here in the present. And even when there is something bad happening now, you have the capacity to handle it and deal with it in a way that you didn't a long time ago. Like, let's say instead of just giving you a mean look, someone's yelling at you. Well, that may not be okay. That may not be an okay circumstance to allow to perpetuate. But your capacity to deal with it, both in yourself and in an actual interaction with the yelling person, is far greater than when you were a small child and didn't understand what was going on and were really quite relatively powerless. So understanding the difference between the past and the present gives you the possibility of recognizing that now things are okay. You start by noticing the difference. Nothing bad is happening now. But you can't not react. So what you'll do is you'll just react. And the goal is, after the fact, later on, to be able to tell that you reacted. You become less reactive by, after the fact, an hour later, a day later, noticing that you got triggered and trying to make sense of what it was that got triggered, so that you can start to do the work of healing and resolving your past. And the more you do that, the less triggerable you become, the less reactive you are. You will naturally react less once you've resolved the unresolved things that you carry around with you, like the ammunition in your loaded gun. The goal is to become less reactive. In the meanwhile, when you do react, stop blaming other people. Don't tell people that they triggered you. It doesn't work that way. It's that you're triggerable. And okay, maybe you could say, you know that that triggers me, you shouldn't do that, because the person should know that you're reactive to particular things that remind you of your history. But really, the goal is cooperatively for you both to help you to heal the past, to counsel, to work on it, so that eventually you become somebody who can't be triggered.